Hi, this is Congressman Tom Cole, and this is another one of our congressional chats. And it's Friday, October 1st, and we're sort of a little bit in a mess in Washington, D.C. We did a number of things this week. Some were passed, some were not. Probably the most important immediate issue is the so-called continuing resolution. All government funding runs out at the end of the fiscal year, which was midnight last night, September 30th. And Democrats had tried to attach several things to the so-called continuing resolution, which just maintains things as they are as Congress continues to negotiate toward final solutions. They weren't able to pass those things through the Senate, so they finally threw in the towel. And yesterday afternoon, late, we passed a measure centered on the president. So there's no risk of a government shutdown in the immediate future. This funds the government through December 3rd of this year, so about the next 2 months. And it's certainly our hope that we can complete a lot more of our business by that point. But there's no guarantees. The second issue that Congress tried to deal with this month was the raising of the so-called debt limit. That's a very important bill. It keeps the United States paying its debts. However, Republicans have told Democrats, this year you haven't worked with us on spending in any way. They jammed us on a $1.9 trillion coronavirus relief bill on a straight party line vote and under what's called reconciliation. No Republican input's been accepted on any of the appropriations bills. No Republican input obviously is being solicited in the so-called reconciliation bill, $3.5 trillion bill. It's a matter of dispute even within the Democratic Party. So, Democrats have the vote to raise the debt ceiling all on their own. They've managed to get it through the House on straight party line votes. They can do it also through the Senate, again, under reconciliation. They've, again, tried to get Republican senators on record voting for this, but they feel pretty strongly about it. Technically, the government would run out of money sometime around October 18th, give or take a few days. My guess is at the end of the day that the debt ceiling will be raised, and the United States will continue as it has throughout most of its history, all of its history since Alexander Hamilton was treasurer, will pay all of its bills in full on time. But again, I think since Democrats are doing all the spending, Republicans feel pretty strongly that they ought to take the lead in raising the debt ceiling, and they control the presidency, the Senate and House, so they have the votes to do it. Now, I would tell you if we controlled one of the chambers, we would probably be participating in supporting the Democrats, but there would have been a lot less spending too, because if we have control of a chamber, we're able to put the brakes on some of the things they want to do. So again, when they have unitary control, it's not unusual that a lot of members in the opposite party say, good luck, you're doing things we don't agree with. People try to act as if this is somehow unusual. It's not. Let me tell you, when now President Biden was a United States Senator, when Republicans, the last 5 times the debt ceiling was raised, with Republicans controlling the presidency, the Senate, and the House, Senator Biden didn't vote to raise it one time. And in those same 5 votes, the Majority Leader Schumer, Majority Leader in the United States Senate, voted against raising the debt ceiling 4 out of 5 times. Democratic leadership, that's Speaker Pelosi and Majority Leader Hoyer, also voted 4 out of 5 times against raising the debt limit. So to hear them yell and scream and whine and moan that somehow Republicans have to step up, I think, frankly, the record's pretty clear. They didn't bother to do it when Republicans were in control. I'm not surprised that Republicans think turnabout is fair play. Another big item on the Hill that you will learn a lot about or hearing a lot about is the so-called bipartisan infrastructure deal. This was negotiated in the United States Senate. It's sent to the House. I will tell you, I will not be voting for that bill when it finally comes up. It has a number of defects. First, it was supposed to be paid for. It's not. It's almost $400 billion worth of additional debt. We usually use gasoline taxes and user fees, those sorts of things, to pay for our infrastructure. This one is partially paid for, but again, $400 billion short. That's a glaring defect to me. Second, this bill was written entirely in the United States Senate and not by the normal committee, which would be the Public Works Committee. It was negotiated between about 10 or 12 senators. Eventually, 19 Republican senators voted for it, all 50 Democrats, but nobody in the House of Representatives had a chance to do anything on this. It hasn't gone through any of our committees. And Oklahoma was sort of dealt out of the process. Normally, again, a bill like this would move through the Public Works Committee. Senator Jim Inhofe's a former chairman of that committee, a very senior member of that committee, and frankly, over the years has just done an exceptional job of looking after Oklahoma interests. We didn't have that kind of protection or participation this time. Both our senators voted against this bill. I suspect the entire Republican House delegation in Oklahoma will also vote against the bill. But it can pass anytime the Democrats want to pass it. It's already passed the Senate, has enough Democratic and a few Republican votes to pass the House, and of course the president would sign it. The problem is it's become a bone of contention in a Democratic fight over an even larger spending bill, the so-called reconciliation bill, a 3.5, really $4.3 trillion monstrosity of higher taxes, increased debt, and one social program after the other. Some of them are popular. I think others are more dubious, and certainly we're also giving tax breaks to millionaires and billionaires in blue states. But in any event, the Democrats are trying to pass that on a straight party line vote. But there are some moderate Democrats, Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia, Senator Kyrsten Sinema from Arizona, both of whom think the number is simply too high. They have concerns about a number of the programs. They both support this bipartisan transportation deal, and so to punish them for not stepping up to the plate and backing this larger bills that they have some concerns over, Democrats in the House or in the progressive wing are just saying we're not going to vote for the infrastructure bill until we're assured of the passage of the larger $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill. So Democrats are at a stalemate because they're in disarray. The Speaker promised that we would vote on the infrastructure bill on Monday. We did not. Then she promised that we would vote on it on Thursday. We did not. This is Friday, and so far we haven't been informed of any planned vote on the bill. Democrats have been caucusing. Again, they're pretty much in disarray, divided, and I think unable to get this one across the finish line. I want to contrast that to what happened last year. The two parties, 2020, in a very difficult year. Obviously, coronavirus hit in February of that year. We had government-mandated shutdowns in the spring that disrupted the economy. We had a really tough, hard-fought election all year long. But last year, the two sides worked together. And so you got 5 coronavirus relief bills, over $4 trillion, I think absolutely critical in saving the economy. They all passed with overwhelmingly bipartisan votes in both the House and the Senate. All 12 appropriations bills passed. Again, overwhelmingly bipartisan votes. Was there negotiation? Certainly. Were there differences that had to be compromised? Absolutely. But the dysfunction you're seeing now is what happens when one party tries to run everything all by itself, particularly when its majorities are so narrow. This is the most narrowly divided Congress since 1884. 50-50 United States Senate, a difference between the two parties in the House of literally 7 votes right now. So if 4 Democrats don't go along with something and it's a party line vote, it fails. You can't do the kinds of things, in my view, that Democrats want to do with majorities that are that small. And when your majority is that small, you really empower the extremes at either end of it. And that's what you're seeing now. You're seeing progressives trying to push for things they don't have the votes for and dragooning moderate Democrats into it. And you see a couple of, with all due respect, Senator Manchin and Senator Kirsten are not, particularly heavyweight players at this point in their career in the Senate. I don't think Senator Manchin is chairman of a major committee. He hasn't been here that long. This is actually Senator Kirsten's first term. But they're now extraordinarily important people because you have to have every single Democratic vote to move by reconciliation. They have no margin of error. So we're going to be watching this drama play out, I think, over and over and over again in the final months of the year. So what's the state of play right now? The government's funded through December 3rd. Congress did that yesterday, did it in a bipartisan way. I supported that. The debt ceiling has not been lifted. Critical day there is probably about 18 days from today. I suspect it will get lifted, but the Democrats have the votes to do it. They just simply have to use the mechanisms available for them to do it. But one way or the other, I think that'll get taken care of. The bipartisan infrastructure deal can happen anytime the Democrats want to happen, but it's really being held hostage to a family squabble inside the Democratic Party, where one group, the progressives, are saying we're not going to let you have infrastructure unless you vote for something that is 3 times as big, permanent changes, and gigantic tax-raising bill that isn't particularly popular. So they're going to have to work that out, and the fate of the infrastructure bill, which can pass if it's ever put on the floor, and the reconciliation bill, which today would fail, or at least would have to be changed significantly to have any chances to pass, are the 2 things that Congress will be fighting over. But along the way, sooner or later, Congress will have to deal with appropriations, that is, fund the government for next year, and we'll also have to deal again with the continuing CR if more time for negotiation is needed in late or in early December, which it would not surprise me at this point if that happened. So anyway, we'll continue to work very hard to protect Oklahoma's interest in it. We'll continue to try and make sure the government does not shut down. We'll continue to find common sense solutions like, as I said last week, the National Defense Authorization Act, where the 2 parties work together, and that bill is likely to pass going forward. We'll be working on that. Oklahoma has a lot of interest in that bill. And we'll see if we can find some other areas. But right now, let me just end by saying until the Democratic Party gets its act together and can get its moderate and progressive wings on the same page, I would expect a roller coaster ride for the rest of the year. With that, look forward to visiting with you next week.